Good evening and welcome to Prime Time Lawmakers special simulcast of the State Address on the second legislative day of the Georgia General Assembly. We welcome GPB Radio and Georgia News Network listeners as well as our online viewers to our broadcast. I'm Scott Slade.
And I'm Sandra Parrish. Today, Governor Nathan Deal appears before a joint session of the Georgia General Assembly to deliver his second State of the State address. He is expected to outline his legislative and spending priorities for 2012.
At the Georgia Chamber's Eggs and Issues breakfast this morning, the governor emphasized infrastructure and possible tax reform. He did say that tonight's speech would look at education and investment.
That's right, Scott. We certainly expect to hear about the Hope Scholarship, Georgia's pre-K program, and charter schools tonight, as well as infrastructure investment. Another subject we expect Governor Deal to touch on is criminal justice reform.
And if anything other than the budget, which of course is the main business of the General Assembly, judicial reform is going to be one of the key issues, is it not, Sandra?
That's right, Scott. I believe that they've made it clear, the Speaker, the Lieutenant Governor, the Governor himself have made it clear that judicial reform will be the top priority this session. A special counsel has met over the last 12 months looking at how it can reform the criminal justice system, especially when it comes to finding alternative sentences for nonviolent offenders.
And shorter sentences that might release the strain of the budget, because the Corrections Department is costing the state to incarcerate people around $1 billion a year.
Right. I think I saw a figure from that council's recommendations that said that there will be about an 8% increase in the prison population over the next 5 years, resulting in another $264 million just for more prison space.
You've been covering the Capitol for 14 years, Sandra. In the past, some governors have lumped the budget proposals in with the State of the State address. Some have split them up. Will we hear both from Governor Deal tonight?
I do believe we'll hear both tonight. We'll hear some of his priorities for the session and spending priorities for the session. He's laid out a few of those already. I think he's already planning, going back to criminal justice reform, spending $10 million to expand those alternative programs that are currently out there, the drug courts, the mental health courts.
The governor is expected to make announcements this evening on education, transportation, health care, criminal justice, government efficiency. And Sandra, if this morning's Eggs and Issues breakfast was any clue, we're going to have a real pep rally in job creation, aren't we?
That's right. That's another priority of this session, is creating jobs. The governor laid out his plans of tax reform that's actually aimed at bringing more businesses here to Georgia. We saw some of his proposals this morning on tax credits, exempting sales tax to encourage more, exempting the sales tax on energy that's used for manufacturing, that would encourage more companies to come here and be able to use that to create jobs.
Speaker Alston is asking the House to come to order now. Let's take a look inside of the chamber as we get ready to welcome Governor Deal to the House chamber. He has to be invited in because it's not normally his stomping grounds.
That's right. They did pass a resolution today that would invite him in.
Remember where we were 1 year ago today on January 10th, 2011?
I do remember where we were. There was snow and ice on the ground. It was difficult to get around the city of Atlanta, and I was stranded here personally for 3 days in downtown Atlanta.
And the chamber is rising right now, still welcoming some of the dignitaries. The justices of the Georgia Supreme Court are coming in. It's not unlike the State of the Union, the State of the State message. The constitutional officers do file in and occupy prominent seats inside the House chamber. It's quite an event. Right.
They actually ask members of the House and Senate to escort the governor to come in. So it is a lot of pomp and circumstance.
Nathan Deal was sworn in as Georgia's 82nd governor 1 year ago today. And since then, if anything, some have described a new era of cooperation on both sides of the aisle that is taking place here at the state capitol. The governor actually attending a Democratic caucus or two along the way last year.
Yeah, I think we've seen a lot of bipartisan efforts on a lot of fronts. And, you know, there still are disagreements between the two sides, but I think there has been an effort to come together and work more since he's become governor.
Will we hear anything about jobs tonight? Will the governor make any proposals on either eliminating jobs or freezing perhaps the workforce where it is now in the state?
I think that will probably come in when he's talking about consolidating parts of state government. That's another cost-cutting move. It is going to cost some jobs of state employees. We're hearing upwards of 40 to 50 employees in the state will lose their jobs. He's already said he's going to freeze some of the government slots right now, so we probably won't see the government workforce grow anymore.
I'm glad you mentioned the tax exemptions, because the governor, the speaker, and the lieutenant governor all have a little different way to nibble at the edges of the whole idea of building jobs. And one of the things the governor wants to do is make Georgia more competitive by eliminating that tax on energy. Georgia's only one of 10 states that charges that tax right now, and it makes businesses less able to charge less. They be competitive.
Right, and I spoke with the president of the Georgia Association of Manufacturers today at the Eggs and Issues Breakfast, who says that just over the last year, remember they couldn't pass the tax reform last year, over just the last year, the state has lost tens of millions of dollars in investments to other states.
Constitutional officers are being welcomed into the House chamber now. It is the biggest chamber here at the state capitol. Speaker Pro Tem Jan Jones is coming in, the highest-ranking female officer in the legislature, first woman Speaker Pro Tem in the history of the legislature.
That's right.
That's quite something. She's being welcomed in. I guess we'll get the others in as well in just a moment. There she is right now, Jan Jones. David Ralston is making the introductions. He, after all, is the Speaker. It's his chamber.
Now we're seeing some of the Senate leadership coming in. President Pro Tem Tommy Williams is making his way in.
And these introductions will continue until the governor himself is welcomed in. First ladies will be welcomed as well. First Lady of the House, First Lady of the Senate, and then the First Lady of Georgia.
So you know the Lieutenant Governor and the Governor aren't far behind.
That's true. That's true.
And the Lieutenant Governor just now being welcomed in, Casey Cagle. This is his second term as Lieutenant Governor.
And the power struggle continues behind the scenes on just what the Lieutenant Governor is authorized to do, but he is here tonight.
That's right.
Part of
the gallery two
the
very,
event.
very special Georgians. First of all, my friend and bride for 35 years and the First Lady
And we
of
have the
this
Speaker
house,
introducing
my wife,
his
Jane.
wife. A very important job for him, I must say.
Indeed it is, as it should be. 35 years? I think is what he
Something like
said.
that.
And a truly gracious, kind, and very distinguished Georgian that I am proud to call the First Lady of this state, First Lady Sandra Deal.
First Lady Sandra Deal is getting quite a cheer from the House chamber.
I believe Scott will be throwing it to the doorkeeper next, meaning that the governor himself will be about to enter.
Governor Deal says his goal is to make Georgia the #1 state to do business. And he will be unveiling specifics in that plan tonight. It's an exciting time, a little more revenue that they have to deal with here than they've had in a couple of years past.
Doorkeeper.
Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Nathan Deal, Governor of Georgia, his Committee of Escort, and distinguished guests await entrance to this chamber.
Mr. Doorkeeper, please allow the Governor of Georgia, his Committee of Escort, and distinguished guests access to the House chamber.
You're watching and listening to live coverage of the State of the State message here in Georgia Public Broadcasting. Governor Deal is in the House chamber now.
I'd say he's getting quite a welcome from both parties and both sides.
We should be hearing from the governor tonight on building blocks for economic prosperity in Georgia, according to the release from his office. Brooks Coleman from Duluth right there, shaking hands. One of the leading legislators on education issues. Governor Deal is only the second Republican to hold the office of governor since Reconstruction. He's not a stranger to these hallways, of course. You know, he served many years in the state Senate before going off to Washington, D.C. to serve as a member of the House of Representatives before running for the state's highest office. There's Minority Leader Stacey Abrams.
And a big hug for Stacey Abrams.
They work well together. From what I've heard, they work very well together. They're both outspoken and eloquent and respectful.
That's right.
And that, if anything, has generated a great deal of goodwill across the aisle.
Now Scotty's shaking hands with members of the state Supreme Court as he makes his way up to the podium.
Ladies and gentlemen, the governor of the state of Georgia, Nathan Deal.
It's my pleasure now and honor to call this joint session of the House and Senate to order. The clerk will read a resolution.
House Resolution 1097 by Representative Ralston VII. Be resolved by the General Assembly of Georgia that His Excellency Governor Nathan Deal is hereby invited to address a joint session of the House of Representatives and the Senate, 7:00 p.m. Tuesday, January 10, 2012, in the Hall of the House of Representatives. Be it further resolved, a committee of 14, 7 from the House to be named by the Speaker, 7 from the Senate to be named by the President of the Senate, be appointed to escort His Excellency the Governor to the Hall of the House of Representatives. Be it further resolved that justices of the Supreme Court, judges of the Court of Appeals are hereby extended an invitation to be present at the joint session.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. I've had the pleasure of knowing our governor for a long time, and I have always considered him to be one of the most principled public servants that I know. I applaud the vision that he has for this state, and it is my honor now to present to you and introduce to this joint session the Governor of Georgia, Nathan Deal from Hall County. Governor Deal.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Lieutenant Governor, Mr. Speaker, President Pro Tem Williams, Speaker Pro Tem Jones, members of the General Assembly, constitutional officers, members of the judiciary, my fellow Georgians. In centuries long past, in a world far removed from the one we know today, the age of exploration captivated the minds of brave young men. These individuals traveled far distant waters through distant shores to identify the unknown, their will to explore outweighing the countless dangers, the hardships, and the tragedies that they faced. It is an age we now define by these names: Columbus, Da Gama, Vespucci, and Magellan. These brave adventurers, with only primitive tools at their disposal, charted a course by looking to the stars for guidance. The nights were not always clear, the waters not always friendly. For each man commanding a vessel on the high seas, there was always the temptation to give up and turn back. But we know these men today because they held steadfast to their course, leading them to discover new worlds and to expand the opportunities for mankind. Georgians have charged us to set a course for our state, and they have defined the stars that we must follow to expand opportunity. The star of education. We must provide great schools that will cultivate the minds of our young people. The star of transportation. We must provide safe roads and avenues of commerce. The star of security. We must give Georgians the ability to live in safe communities. And the guiding star in our constellation, jobs. We must create a business climate that provides Georgians with their best shot at a good job. These are the stars on which our eyes must be cast. And as we focus them there, we will chart a course for our great state. Tonight, I will discuss our course as we go forward. But first, I think it would be well served for us to take a rearview mirror look at just for a moment the situation we faced 1 year ago and the progress we've made bears our attention. 1 year ago, I said the state of our state is strong, that we possess a unique set of strengths, but we also faced unusual and historic collections of challenges. When we met on this occasion this past January, the Revenue Shortfall Reserve Fund, or the Rainy Day Fund, it is commonly known, had only enough money to fund state operations for less than 2 days, meaning that essential functions of government were at risk in even the slightest hiccup were to occur. 1 year later, with your help, we have begun restoring the Rainy Day Fund. The balance today is $328 million, an increase of 183%. I am committed to continuing to build up this strategic reserve by keeping our spending in check. When we met last year, we faced a difficult budget situation in which the low-hanging fruit and the easy fixes were gone. And yet, we worked together to pass structurally balanced budgets that fund the essential services upon which Georgians depend. And we did it without new taxes. We have delivered common sense, conservative budgets, free of gimmicks and one-time gains. For that reason, we are now one of only 8 states with a AAA rating from the 3 major rating agencies. When compared with our AA peers, this credential of creditworthiness saved Georgia taxpayers $11 million over the life of bonds that were sold last year alone. This also provides us with a powerful tool for economic development. When a business considers locating in Georgia, it helps to be able to show them that they are partnering with a state government that has its house in order. To that end, beginning this year, we will implement zero-based budgeting in 10% of all programs. Through zero-based budgeting, we will bring a new level of accountability to state government and verify that taxpayer dollars are being spent to meet the priorities of Georgians. When we met last year, we faced a federal district court ruling that threatened to cut off up to 85% of Metro Atlanta's water supply. This evening, with the benefit of an 11th Circuit Appeals Court ruling overturning that decision, we are in a much stronger position to reach a lasting agreement with our peers in Alabama and Florida on an issue that is critical to our state in terms of its ability to attract investment and create new jobs. 1 year ago, HOPE, arguably the nation's most generous merit-based higher education scholarship program, was on the unsustainable course and faced complete depletion of reserves as early as fiscal year 2013. This evening, we can claim a piece of legislation that preserves hope for future generations. And for every student who earns hope, my budget for next year maintains the same award amount as was received this year. Also, we will again appropriate $20 million for the needs-based program, 1% loan program for needy students, because this is a burden that sometimes faces students and they have nowhere to turn. This year, more than half of these newly appropriated funds went to students who had no assistance from their families. Together, we've done something else over the past year. And while it is more general in nature, it is perhaps even more important to our ability to govern well and to the long-term prospects of our great state. Together, we have ushered in a new era of cooperation. Last January, we faced a mountain. Together, we climbed it. Thank you for your partnership, and thank you for all that you do to serve Georgians. But this evening, as we embark on a new year, we have other mountains to climb, and it will require our best collective efforts this year and beyond. Recalling the great explorers who looked to the night skies in their search for new lands, the first star in our constellation is education. Our schools are the front line in our effort to create prosperity. It is here that we make our most strategic investment in the future. The amended and fiscal year 2013 budgets that I've prepared take advantage of the stabilization in revenues and appropriate an additional $146.6 million to fully fund enrollment growth in our K through 12 schools. Likewise, in both the technical college and university systems, I'm calling for an additional $111.3 million to fund anticipated enrollment growth. Also, in keeping with the recommendations of the Education Finance Study Commission, and because we believe they are vital ingredients in the educational experience that we provide young Georgians, my budget calls for $3.7 million in additional funds for school nurses. This, along with the school nutrition program and transportation funding, will be moved into the Quality Basic Education funding formula. These funds will be allocated using the same formula for local districts to which they are accustomed, but they will have the complete flexibility in how they spend them. Better than me or anyone else under this gold dome, I believe local school leaders know how to spend funds within their district in order to provide the greatest outcomes for their students. My proposed budget calls for an additional $55.8 million to fund salary increases for our teachers based on training and experience. Unlike the past, there are no reductions in QBE, equalization grants, state schools, or other enrollment-driven programs. Within education, I've called for a new focus on our youngest learners. The budget I'm proposing increases the pre-K school year for 84,000 students by 10 days, bringing it to 170 days. I'm proud to say that this will begin the process of restoring pre-K teacher salaries, certainly something that needs to be done. We must make a concerted effort to increase the percentage of children reading at grade level by the completion of the 3rd grade. The best evidence tells us that children not meeting this standard often fail to catch up and are more likely to drop out of school, go to prison, and have higher unemployment rates later in life than their reading proficient peers. Students must learn to read in order to be able to read, to learn. And when we fail to invest in our youngest students, we are forced to spend money on remediation for the remainder of their academic careers. To this end, my budget includes $1.6 million for a Reading Mentors program. This program will assist schools and teachers as they work to help more young Georgians achieve the strategic benchmark, reading at grade level by the completion of the 3rd grade. You've heard me talk about moving beyond the status quo in education, and that requires a more intense focus on innovation in the classroom. In particular, we need to put in place strategies that provide students with opportunities to practice and apply what they are learning in a high-quality, real-world environment. This is one reason we allotted nearly $20 million of our Race to the Top money for the creation of an innovation fund. This initiative asks schools to partner with businesses, nonprofits, and post-secondary institutions, and places a primary focus on developing applied learning opportunities. We've already seen positive results, and tomorrow I will announce the winners of round 2 in that process. To spur innovation, I'm also recommending $8.7 million in supplemental grants in both the amended budget and next year's budget for state chartered special schools affected by the Georgia Supreme Court ruling on charter schools. These schools are key to Georgia's educational success, and without these additional dollars, they would be forced to operate on approximately half of the funds of other public schools. However, this is not the long-term solution, and I'm looking forward to working with you to ensure that charter schools can thrive in Georgia. We can do this, and with your help, we will. Further, we must clarify the mission of our schools. Let me state this very clearly. I believe students graduating from our high schools, these young men and women who have done everything we've asked of them in our K-12 system, should be fully ready for post-secondary study or a job. Going forward, we will reclaim that mission by ensuring that there is a more seamless transition from high school to further study and from post-secondary study to the workforce. When our young people facing a difficult job market and stiff global competition for good jobs, we must do everything in our power to ensure that our education system provides graduates with real opportunity. Our post-secondary institutions must maintain an intense focus on employability and creating job opportunities. And in today's competitive global environment where technology is constantly reshaping the economy, that means abandoning the ivory tower model and adapting to meet the needs of business. The focus on practical education is why I'm announcing Go Bill Georgia this evening. Go Bill is a public-private initiative that will round out our workforce development program by educating young people and the public at large about the skilled trades. Already, the business community is unable to fill many positions calling for highly skilled industrial and commercial construction professionals, jobs that on average pay 27% more than the average Georgian currently earns. And with an aging workforce in this area, we are on track to replace only 1 of every 4 retirees. Today in America, with more than 13 million people unemployed and seeking work, there are 1.3 million open positions in skilled trade industries for which companies are unable to find qualified applicants. Right here in Metro Atlanta, Siemens has been unable to fill approximately 200 skilled trade positions in the fields of manufacturing automation, healthcare technology, transportation systems, and technical service. It is time we begin work to boost our pipeline. We must work together to ensure that our state has the craft professionals to meet present and forecasted demand. This is something we can do, and with your help, we will. Here in Georgia, we are blessed with world-class university and technical college systems that provide opportunity for every young Georgian and provide business with a pipeline of talented workers. As we seek to continue improving higher education in this state, I want to commend Chancellor Hank Huckabee and the Board of Regents, along with Commissioner Ron Jackson and the Technical College Board, for performing a strategic consolidation of institutions. In this age of doing more with less, you are delivering a better return on investment without compromising service to students. Before leaving the topic of higher education, I want to announce two ambitious goals. Georgians deserve a world-class medical university, and it will be a priority of this administration to have a medical college among the top 50 nationally. This is something we can do, and with your help, we will. Also, within this push, the Georgia Health Sciences University will seek to become the state's second National Cancer Institute designated cancer center, alongside the Winship Cancer Center at Emory. As of today, Georgians' annual death rate from cancer exceeds the national average, but I believe we have all of the ingredients necessary for it to be a destination for cancer research and a resource for every family battling this disease. This designation would mean greater access to research dollars and enhance our ability to recruit top cancer specialists. Even more, it will place Georgians battling this horrific disease first in line for the newest and most promising therapies and clinical trials. To support this goal of a second Georgia-based cancer center, my budget proposal includes an investment of $5 million. This is something we can do, and with your help, we will. In order to address the need for additional health professionals in Georgia, we've been investing in the expansion of undergraduate medical education for several years. We must now take the next step in this process by increasing the number of graduate residency slots. My budget funds 400 new residency slots in hospitals across the state. Presently, because we lack adequate residency program capacity, Georgia taxpayers help fund a promising young Georgian in pre-K, K through 12, post-secondary, and medical education, only to see them perform their residency outside of our state and never return. That doesn't provide value for Georgians paying taxes, it doesn't make sense for Georgians needing care, and it isn't fair to young Georgians looking to begin medical careers. We must ensure that no doctor trained in Georgia is forced to leave the state to complete his or her medical education. This is something we can do, and with your help, we will. Another primary responsibility of government is providing infrastructure. And because it is a key building block of job creation, it is a star that will guide our course forward. In a global economy in which commerce is increasingly long distance and reliant on cutting-edge logistics, we need a bigger, smarter transportation network to move people and products in the most efficient way possible. That means roads on which traffic and freight move freely, ports that handle bigger ships, and airports that process people and packages more efficiently. To reduce traffic congestion in Metro Atlanta along Georgia 400, we will be working with the DOT to implement innovative traffic solutions. We will modify the existing southbound lanes from McFarland Road to the Chattahoochee River, allowing an additional southbound through lane. For the Chattahoochee River to I-285, we will implement flex shoulders in each direction. These improvements will allow us to better facilitate traffic during peak rush hours, accommodating the explosive growth that the northern suburbs have experienced. Recently, we called a halt to the P3 project for the Northwest Corridor. While there were many reasons for doing so, one of the most important ones that I can think of was that I was, am, and will be opposed to contracting away Georgia's sovereignty for a period of 60 to 70 years on a transportation corridor that is so vital to the future of our state. I remain committed to improving the Northwest Corridor, but there is a better way forward. Investment in transportation infrastructure is indeed an investment in our future. I applaud this legislature's creation of a transparent, bottom-up approach to identifying critical transportation projects throughout Georgia. The regional referendums on this year's ballots will give voters the opportunity to fund a slate of projects with a sales tax when they deem the proposed investment provides value. Over the last several decades, our capacity has fallen behind due to underinvestment in transportation. We must seize this opportunity to invest in our future. We can do this, and with your help, we will. We're continuing to work towards the completion of the Savannah Harbor Expansion Project, a project that is imperative to our state's competitiveness and with the bigger ships traversing an enlarged Panama Canal in 2014. My budget for next year includes $46.7 million in bonds to continue the deepening project at the harbor, building on the more than $136 million that has already been approved for the harbor deepening project over the past 3 years. Also, within infrastructure, we are working to ensure that every Georgia community has dependable water supplies. While we await the Army Corps of Engineers' decision regarding the impact of water diversions from Lake Lanier, we are moving forward with plans to enhance water supply and security around the state. Last year, we took definitive action to get the ball rolling. My budget for next year proposes $45.7 million for water supply projects, the second installment in a 4-year plan calling for $300 million of new investment in water supply. Today, the Georgia Environmental Finance Authority has issued the solicitation and application forms for the water supply program, and local governments can now apply for the low-interest loans and state direct investment as detailed in the recent approved state water supply plan. I want to commend our Water Task Force for creating a thorough, forward-looking plan that makes sense for Georgia communities, both big and small. With our state's population projected to grow by an estimated 4.6 million people over the next 2 decades, it is imperative that we expand water supply across our state. We must stop being so dependent on the federal government for our water. We must seize our own destiny. This is something we can do, and with your help, we will. This evening I've talked about our duty as elected officials to do the long-term work of ensuring our state charts a course forward that leads to a rich environment of opportunity for every Georgian. But when these traditional building blocks fail, more and more citizens drift into the criminal justice arena. And here in Georgia, entrance into our criminal justice system has been a dead end for far too many. Last year, faced with one of the most incarcerated populations in the nation, low rehabilitation rates, and high recidivism, you joined me in passing legislation to create the Criminal Justice Reform Council. Since that time, the Council has taken a comprehensive look at what changes are needed to increase the effectiveness of our correctional efforts. I want to commend the Council for their work that they have done, and my budget recommendations reflect their findings. To start, my budget proposes $1.4 million to fund additional parole officers at the State Board of Pardons and Paroles. These officers will provide supervision to offenders who would otherwise serve their sentence and be released in our communities without any supervision. Unless we provide the appropriate tools of supervision that facilitate a successful reentry into society, history has shown us that offenders simply return to the prison population. Right now in Georgia, nearly 1 in 3 leaving our prisons are reconvicted within 3 years. We must shut that revolving door. This is something that we can do, and with your help, we will. I am also recommending $35.2 million for additional prison beds for those who pose a threat to our citizens. I am proposing to convert 3 pre-release centers to residential substance abuse treatment centers at a cost of $5.7 million. We must make this investment. If we fail to treat the addict's drug addiction, we haven't taken the first step in breaking the cycle of crime, a cycle that destroys lives and wastes taxpayer resources. This is something we can do, and with your help, we will. Because we are seeing an increased need for resources to work with violent youth offenders within our juvenile justice system, my budget includes funding to open a new youth detention center, as well as funding for 2 security management and response teams. I'm also recommending $10 million in next year's budget for the creation of new accountability courts, drug, DUI, mental health, and veterans courts, all of which have proven to be both cheaper and more effective than traditional courts for those low-risk offenders falling under their jurisdiction. In fact, drug courts around the nation have proven to reduce recidivism by as much as 35%. This evening, I want to tell you about a typical case that finds its way into a drug court. Sarah was a drug addict. The drug use that began as recreation resulted in a destructive cocaine and methamphetamine addiction. It took control of her life. At one point, she had no means of transportation. She lost custody of her little girl. She wound up homeless. But I mentioned Sarah tonight because she exemplifies many of the goals that we hold for our correction system. Under the supervision of a drug court, piece by piece, she began rebuilding her life. With help, she beat her addiction. She won back her daughter, and she is now a sponsor helping other women who face the same trials. And because she provides a powerful example of hope and redemption, I've asked her to join us in this chamber tonight. Sarah and her daughter are here, and I would be honored if you would give her a round of applause. Sarah was given a shot at a better life, and she took it. Her story is not an exception. It is playing out all across Georgia as people reclaim their lives through the work of accountability courts. While these reforms require initial investments, they will increase public safety and ultimately save money by creating a more effective correction system that rehabilitates people, closing the revolving door. If we lock up an 18-year-old who has no skills and is unemployable, where will that individual be after completing a 15-year sentence behind bars? Without a new approach that brings hope back into the equation, we will have spent $270,000 and then have a 33-year-old with no skills who is more dangerous and even more unemployable than before. We can do better, and with your help, we will. That is why we must transform and focus on transforming our correction system into a last resort of opportunity, a place where low-level offenders are reclaimed and restored to society as functional members of their community, working to support their own families and paying taxes. This evening, I'm calling on the religious community, the nonprofits, the charitable organizations to begin addressing the problem of reentry. We need you and the people around this state who care to lead bold new efforts in job training and job placement for prisoners reentering society. You can provide the bridge that will connect those who have served their time with a job and the dignity that it provides. If they will do their part, and many of them will, we must do our part. Let me make it very clear so that there is no misinterpretation. This is not a get-out-of-jail-free card. These reforms do not in any way diminish the seriousness of the 7 deadly sins. And if you commit one of those in our state, you will spend time in our prisons. In fact, this transformation of our corrections efforts will ensure that we have the space and the resources to incarcerate high-risk and violent offenders as we go forward. First and foremost, the greatest need of our citizens, though, is jobs. And for that reason, it is the last and the brightest star in our constellation. Businesses require a talented workforce and strong infrastructure, but they also require a business environment that allows them to compete in today's global marketplace. With that in mind, the Georgia Competitiveness Initiative pulled together business leaders and more than 4,000 Georgians across the state to develop a strategy that would improve our business case. And this morning, at the annual Eggs and Issues Breakfast, I outlined a 3-part plan for strategic tax reform based on the work of that initiative. First, I am proposing the elimination of the sales tax on energy used in manufacturing. This is a move that will align us with many of our top competitors. This will have a dramatic impact on manufacturers' overall cost structure and vastly improve the competitiveness initiative of our producers. Secondly, I am proposing sales and use tax exemptions for construction materials used in projects of regional importance. Giving us this tool when competing with other states for projects will create large opportunities for those who will create more jobs for our state. A third piece, we are proposing to restructure Georgia's job tax credits and quality tax credit programs. The programs now in place were created in 1994, a time when the competitive landscape was far different than the one our businesses operate in today. We will modernize our job tax credits to better incentivize small business growth and to help every Georgia community compete with their regional peers. My office is already working with the House and Senate leadership to create legislation to this effect. Georgians cannot compete for jobs that go elsewhere when employers make the decision that a neighboring state is a better place to do business. The job creators across this state have spoken, and I ask all of you to join me in making these important changes. This is something that we can do, and with your help, we will. With a sluggish global economy, we still face challenges, but we are beginning to see indication that things are stabilizing. Georgia's revenue trends have strengthened over the last 18 months, and with sustained growth in this order, I believe real job creation is much closer than it was when we met on this occasion 1 year ago. Ladies and gentlemen, the state of our state is strong. In keeping with our mission to chart a course that fulfills the priorities of Georgians, we will follow these stars: providing strong, innovative schools geared for modern marketplace, providing practical tools for workplace development, providing a modern infrastructure that moves people and products efficiently, providing safe communities, creating a business-friendly environment that attracts investment and puts Georgians in the best possible position to get a good job. And when we have fulfilled these imperatives, which are the legitimate purposes of government, let us heed the admonition of Georgians who have asked us to do these few things well, and then get out of the way and let them live their lives in freedom as they see fit. If we do this, hard-working, self-reliant Georgians will propel our state into a prosperous future. Thank you, and may God continue to bless this great state and our nation.
Governor Nathan Deal with the State of the State message. He spoke about 42 minutes tonight, interrupted by applause at least a couple of dozen times. Scott Slade here live in Georgia Public Broadcasting with Sandra Parrish, and Tom Crawford joined us from the Georgia Report. Tom, your impressions, some headlines from the speech tonight from the governor.
Well, he gave us a little bit of a hint at what the budget will contain tomorrow. He's put in some funding there for things like drug courts, prison beds, charter schools. He's restoring full formula funding for public K-12 schools too, which is a good step. So those were, I thought, some of the highlights of it.
Sandra, what do you think?
He even threw healthcare in there, talking about a Georgia-based cancer center coming to Georgia, opening up 400 residency slots in Georgia hospitals. I think he touched on everything, education, healthcare. He even threw some transportation in on top of everything.
He did stick to the jobs theme, though. An awful lot of things went through the jobs filter, didn't they? From those 400 residency slots, you know, when a doctor opens a practice in this state, there's a lot of jobs that go with it, all the way to the Georgia Build program that will fill skilled job positions, Tom.
Right, that's modeled after a program called Go Build Alabama, which was aimed at promoting the construction industry and getting more people into skilled construction jobs. He's going to try something similar in Georgia.
And the governor, even though we're talking about judicial reform and new ways to rehabilitate drug and alcohol offenders, he's saying that the 7 deadly sins will not be tolerated.
Basically not a get-out-of-jail-free card.
Absolutely. Now we go live to the Senate chamber, where Senate Minority Leader Steve Henson will deliver the official Democratic response to the state of the state.
Good evening. My name is Steve Henson, leader of the Georgia Senate Democratic Caucus. On behalf of my colleagues, we commend Governor Nathan Deal for his ideas to help better manage the state of Georgia. There will be many opportunities for us to work with him on legislative endeavors. In our efforts, Democrats will stand for common sense solutions that create a strong and prosperous Georgia that works for all of our citizens. We will stand up for working families of our state who are struggling to pay their mortgage, buy health insurance, and put food on the table. Democrats believe our greatest asset is the people of Georgia. Our citizens deserve our attention and investment. Every decision we make during Georgia's legislative session must be focused on creating jobs, creating communities that work, and building a strong families, and creating an educated workforce, and guaranteeing honest government that works for everyone. We will not be distracted by legislation that veers from this course. Policies that strengthen responsible and physically sound investments are necessary, and those policies must be fair and compassionate. Understanding that we live in one of the worst economic environments many of us have ever known. And that is why Democrats proposed legislation this session to study all special interest tax cuts to ensure they are creating jobs and are in the best interest of all Georgians. Balancing the state's budget is not only a good idea, it's our constitutional mandate. To that end, Democrats will be the voice of the people of Georgia and not special interests. Our process has been too tilted in favor of short-term financial gain for some instead of long-term employment and economic growth for all. Our state budget has been too tilted toward pushing up the wealthiest over increasing the incomes of the middle class and giving the poor a chance to work their way into it. We cannot balance our state budget while giving special interest tax breaks to some and shifting the burden to the middle class. Any taxation plan must be done fairly, balancing the needs of families and small business. Remember, special interest tax cuts over the last decade did not prevent the crash of Georgia's job market or our continued job losses. Rather than clinging to the stale options of the past, state legislators should work across party lines toward innovative, forward-looking solutions. There is no greater investment our state can make than in educating our children, fully funding Georgia's pre-K programs, reducing class size, and training people for the jobs of today and tomorrow. It's an investment that we need to make. We applaud the governor for adding 10 days a year back into the pre-K schedule. We need to remind Georgians that this is accomplished by eliminating 2,000 slots for pre-K next year. We must build a state economy that is not based on outsourcing, tax loopholes, and risky financial deals, but one that is built to last. One built on investments like education, transportation, higher education, and research and development. And we ask the governor to provide more leadership in funding these key elements of long-term success. We must do better at educating and training Georgians for jobs, and not just any jobs, jobs that pay well. In November 2011, Georgia was the only state in the nation to lose jobs. This is a direct result of our failure to build the foundations for long-term economic success. While other states have started down the road to recovery, Georgia's jobs picture has worsened. In fact, Georgia ranked dead last in job growth over the past 2 years. Georgia Senate Democrats will approach legislation with 4 things in mind: creating a sustainable economy in which businesses thrive, creating a transparent and honest government that works for everyone, building strong families, educating people for success. During the next few weeks, Democrats will introduce legislation aimed at moving beyond rhetoric and the failed ideas of the last decade. We have heard loud and clear from Georgians they want a government fixed so that it works. Democrats pledge to respectfully and collaboratively work with Republicans with a dialogue that is civil and productive. We need to make the best choices and changes in both government and our private economic practices. These tasks require the best ideas of Democrats and Republicans, conservatives and liberals. We hope for nothing less in order to create a strong and prosperous Georgia. Thank you for the opportunity to address you this evening.
And that's our State of the State broadcast on this second legislative day of the 2012 session. I'm Sandra Parrish.
And I'm Scott Slade. Thanks to all our viewers and listeners for joining us tonight. Watch Prime Time Lawmakers tomorrow night at 7 for all the latest from under the Gold Dome. Have a good night.
This is a GPB original production.